In this video, we'll be taking a look at some data analysis software. This package comes from CoreStar. This is our Eddy Vision data analysis software. And the data that you're looking at is tubing data using an inside Bobbin coil, operating the differential and absolute modes. Now, a lot of companies have software similar to this, but they all have the same basic components. They all have Lissajous. They all have long strip charts. They all have expanded strip charts. And although the buttons that you click to make different features work, they all pretty much have the same outcome, right, with the data. So I'm just going to go over some main things here. So with heat exchanger bobbin coil data, oftentimes the data is recorded and then analyzed at a later time. Now, the reason for that is in turnarounds at power plants, usually there's a limited amount of time in which you can do the inspection. So they want the data collected and recorded as quickly as possible. And then you may put a bunch of analysts on the job to, team up on the analysis to get it done in a shorter period of time. So most of the time, the data that you're looking at has already been collected. So whether I show you live data, for this type of training or data that's 5 years old, it all looks the same because you're looking at a record that has been recorded in the past. Now, when you record heat exchanger tubing data, once you hit the record button on your data acquisition tester, the data starts to scroll in from the top of the strip chart, and the earliest in time data ends up at the bottom of the strip chart once you stop recording. The latest thing that the system recorded is up at the top of the strip chart. So when the bobbin probe was inserted into the tube and retracted while it was recording, this signal at the bottom here is the first indication that the probe saw, and this indication at the top of your long strip charts is the last thing that the probe saw. So now, what are all these charts here? So these long strip charts indicate distance or time, right? And I'm just using my middle mouse wheel to expand and contract the long strip charts. And you see this red area here? This is the data in the red box that's displayed in the expanded strip charts over here. So notice if you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 indications in the red area, that's how many you'll have in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. However, you see these little lines down here. However big you have that window, that's going to control what is displayed in your Lissajous screens up above. So if I want to narrow in on something, I'll use my right mouse button to adjust, and I'm scrolling while I have the right mouse button depressed. So I can zero down an indication and I can go through them one at a time like this. Now this data has already been calibrated, and to calibrate for an ASME inspection, you normally take the signal from the 100% through all hole, which in this case is 0.052 inches in diameter, and you set it to 40 degrees. Notice how this signal, that looks the same on every Lissajous, and these are all different channels. So the first one here, if I make my window a little bit bigger, it will show you the frequency, but this capture software I'm using likes this particular window size. So this is like 50 kilohertz, 25, maybe 15, and then 5 or 10 kilohertz over here. So highest frequency on the left, lowest frequency on the right. But we set them all to 40 degrees. So just by clicking my left mouse button, I can toggle through max rate, peak to peak. They say to set to 40, you got to get it as close as you can get it with the software, right? So by clicking shift, hold down the shift and click my left button, I can adjust the rotation of these signals. But they're all about 40, so for the purpose of this video, we're going to say that's good. Now, remember when I said that the data earliest in time is at the bottom and latest in time is at the top? You have to scroll through this data when you're analyzing it in the same direction that the data was recorded. So how you do that is you go over to the expanded strip charts, and with your left mouse button, you'll just grab that data and you pull it down into this area where the red lines are. And you have to make sure that they start down and to the right and then go up and then back to null like that. If you had mistakenly set a channel upside down, like I'm doing right here, that's actually, what's that for? 220 degrees. So see, when I go measure it, now it's like 220. That's upside down. And when I scroll that data down to this window here, it's going to start actually up and to the left. Well, that's backwards. So we're going to set it back to what it should be. And that's going to be over here at like 40 degrees. Now your ETSS or your setup sheets will tell you, the span that you have to set these to. So all I do to set the span is I hold down my shift button and click here where that 19 is, and I can adjust the size. Once again, these channels are already calibrated, so we're just going to leave them like that. Now, the Lissajous, it's named, this is a screen that's named after Antoine Lissajous. And these type of image that you see here are similar to Lissajous patterns that Antoine Lissajous studied. And this is what the probe produces, so that's why they called the display what they did. Now, the Lissajous is made up of these two charts. This is the vertical component of the Lissajous signal, and this expanded strip chart is the horizontal component of the Lissajous signal. So it's got some vertical over here, and it's got some horizontal in this strip chart. So notice how, if you look on the vertical, negative is down, positive is right. And on the horizontal strip chart, left is over here and right is over here. So looking at the signatures in the expanded strip chart, they go down and to the right. So you can kind of tell what the signal is going to look like just by looking here. But just to confirm that, while I scroll into the window, watch the Lissajous down and to the right. And then the back half of the signal is going to go positive here and to the left. So watch when I scroll that down. That's when your second differential coil sees it. So these are all calibrated down to the right, down to the right, down to the right, down to the right. All right. So you can select which strip charts you want to be in your long strip charts here. And typically you will watch vertical channels, because when you're doing data evaluation and you're looking for signals that may be indicative of flaws, they'll always have a vertical component. And if you're looking for a vertical component, you're going to watch a vertical strip chart. Watch what happens if I'll just manipulate the data to demonstrate a little bit. I'm going to set this signal straight up and down. I'm going to make sure I have the same strip chart over here. So notice how all of the flaw signals have a big kick on the strip chart. That's going to make them readily detectable when you're evaluating the data. However, watch what happens to the signals in the strip chart when I rotate that indication flat. The signal that I'm on right here corresponds to the long strip chart here. It doesn't give you much of a kick out at all. Maybe I should zoom in. Let's see here. See if I can do this a little bit better. Oh, I got to change the data points. Is that what I'm doing here? I got to figure out how to do that. No, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. It's right here. So that's changing the amount of data points that display in my window. All right. So now right there, when that signal is set to horizontal, it doesn't even kick out in the strip chart that much. On the vertical strip chart, I mean, sorry about that. Now if I switch over to the horizontal strip chart, what I gotta do, shift, middle click maybe, middle click, there we go. Now it sticks out a lot because that's a horizontal strip chart, and this signal has a large horizontal component here. But I'm gonna switch it back to vertical, and I'm gonna set the signal to the right phase, which is right about there. Now if I was interested in finding dents, dents have a horizontal signature. So a dent in real life would look, let's see, dents start to the left first, so they would go more like that. That's kind of what a dent would look like. Now if I wanted to see this on my strip chart, I would just switch it over to a horizontal strip chart and see how it sticks out real nice now. So again, for flaws, you're typically watching vertical strip charts. Now, which strip charts do you watch when you're looking for data? Well, let me get this back to more of a normal screen presentation here. Typically what you would do is create a mixed channel. Now, mixed channels are constructed using two different frequencies, and the purpose of a mixed channel is to take a signal that's possibly masking degradation, like a crack, and you're using two channels to subtract that non-relevant signature from the data that you're analyzing. So in a heat exchanger where there's a bunch of tube supports or structures that are supporting your tube, they can easily mask indications of flaws. So you'll make a mix to basically erase the non-relevant signature and only display the flaw data. So let's see what we can show you next. So yeah, typically we'll show a mixed channel here, and then on the right-hand side, we're gonna have a lower frequency absolute channel. So notice over on the left, you have kicks going both way on the strip charts. That's because these are differential signals, self-comparison differential. So you have polarity that goes both ways. So each signal has a down and an up. Well, if I would switch all these Lissajous over to absolute signals like that, my span's kind of low on these, so I got to crank my span up a little bit so you can see them. Notice how these signals, they don't have that dual polarity, they just go one direction, up. And this lower frequency, this is probably about 15 kilohertz, you can detect gradual degradation on this strip chart. And it also, because it's a lower test frequency, it allows you to see the structures in your heat exchanger easily, so you can tell where you're at. And when you can detect structures easily, it also helps you assign locations to each one of those signals. So you can, during your reporting, you can report where a flaw is next to, like the second support plate plus 12 inches or whatever. Okay, so now we talked about the vertical strip charts, the different channels we're going to watch. Now we'll just get over, let's see, we'll put 1, 3, 5, 7 back up here. You know, the way data analysis is done, or data evaluation, is you're doing just a lot of looking at the phases of the different indications. So again, I can display one Lissajous and one expanded strip chart, or I can put 3 or 4. Same thing with the strip charts, I can put as many as I want. But when you start to put too many things in your display, it gets kind of busy. And then you may be looking all over, and you might miss one of the charts or the displays that has some flaw information in it. So you may want to just put as many components of the display as you want in here for your preference. Just make sure that you're looking at all of them and you're able to see the flaws when they're presented to you. So that's the, what do we got on our cal standard here? Let's just look at the flaws. So there's our 100% hole. And then if we scroll down a little bit, then we got a 60%. Notice the phase difference. So remember, the 100% hole is 40 degrees on all of these channels because that's where I set it. But when you leave that signal set at that rotation and you go visit another flaw in the cal standard, now you'll see the phase lag play into our phase analysis. The highest frequency channel has more phase lag because you don't have a flaw right at the inside surface of the tube. It actually doesn't start until you get a ways through the tube wall. And this phase is indicative of some disturbed eddy currents. So if it's 60% flaw from the OD, you're going through 40% of the tube wall's good material, then the rest of the tube has a flat bottom hole there. So you get some phase lag. Now when you go down to the next lower frequency, which is here, you also have phase lag, but lower frequencies penetrate through the tube wall faster than higher frequencies. So there's less phase lag. 0 degrees is on the left and 180 degrees on the right. That's kind of backwards from traditional math and trigonometry that you probably saw in school and college, high school, whatever. But 0 is on the left, 180 is on the right. Now when we step down to the next lower frequency, you have even less phase lag because lower frequencies have less phase lag. So you can see for a given flaw, this is all the same flaw, you have less phase lag with each decreasing test frequency. But also, let's see, so I'll just make a statement here that I like to announce a lot, just so you can remember it. Outside diameter flaws will rotate counterclockwise with decreasing test frequency. That's what it does here. This one is rotated a little bit counterclockwise from the higher frequency. This channel is rotated a little bit counterclockwise from the previous higher frequency. So they're rotating counterclockwise with decreasing test frequency. Now, if you go to ID flaws, like you have right here, now that's a big diameter ID pit. But now remember how we set the 100%er to 40 degrees here? We know that the OD flaws rotate counterclockwise with decreasing frequency, but ID pits, they're going to rotate towards the 100%er with decreasing test frequency. So OD flaws and ID flaws both rotate towards the 100% whole signal as you decrease test frequency. So I'm going to just click here so I can see my phase. That's 11 degrees, 24, 38, 43. This ID flaw is rotating clockwise with decreasing frequency, while the OD flaws are rotating counterclockwise with decreasing frequency. And the absolute channels will behave exactly the same way. This is the OD flaw, and let's just measure that little guy right there. It might take a second. 123, no, that's not a good one. So there's 100, there's a 60, there we go. That's the one I want to measure. 123, not the same channel, see that? Got to be patient, got to pay attention to details. I'm going to change my span a little bit so you can see them here a little better. So again, this is the 60% flat bottom hole, 123 degrees, 90, 69, and 46. So this OD flaw, again, is rotating counterclockwise with decreasing test frequency. And if I go to a shallow OD flaw, or ID flaw, which is right here, it's big. That's why the signal looks like that. But it starts off at 9 degrees, 17, 30 degrees. And channel 8, there's not a lot of phase spread on channel 8, so we're not going to depend on that phase angle too much. But if you look at these flaw detection frequencies for the absolute, the ID flaw is rotating clockwise with decreasing test frequency. In a nutshell, that's how you do phase analysis, but obviously there's a lot more to it. In another video, we'll go through, set up voltage normalization and then creating sizing curves so you can size flaws based on the phase angle or based on the signal amplitude. There's a lot of ground to cover in analysis software, and it's not something that you learn in 1 or 2 lessons. It's like, if you get hired from a company and it's your job and you get certified and you start playing around with some software, it might take you months to get good at it. But after a while, you know what button to click when and where, and it just sort of becomes second nature, like the mouse is an extension of your brain. And one thing I'll tell you, if somebody tells you, oh, you lost your mouse, just use the trackpad on your laptop. That's not going to work for data analysis, because the mouse, you have to use a 3-button mouse, or at least a 2-button mouse with a scroll wheel that you can depress and also scroll with, because there's so many features within the software. You got to have a lot of inputs on your mouse. So 2 buttons, a scroll wheel that you can also depress, and then in tandem with all of those mouse inputs, you're often using special keyboard inputs, such as the control, shift control, the space bar. But again, to get good at data evaluation, it takes a lot of time in the analysis chair. So hopefully here you can see a little bit now what goes into data evaluation of tubing. And there's a lot more to cover, so I'll be making a lot more videos. All right, thanks for watching. Make sure to visit eddycurrent.com.